Okay. Well, I want to welcome a super friend of mine, Angela, who has used our program in the past, and I just wanted to get a few of her viewpoints on what happened with her child. And so we're just going to dive right in. Angela, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
To remind me how many years ago it was that we worked with your son.
It has probably been about 14 years.
14 years. And can you give us a little bit of idea of what was happening at the time, what the struggles were, um, just a little background.
So he is the third of four boys, and um, he didn't appreciate when the fourth one came along. So we had a lot of social emotional issues because we're a little traumatized by having a little brother. He wanted to be the baby. Um, some things that were happening with him were his inability to find things. Could not every Sunday. I think one of my most vivid memories is every Sunday we would be in the car ready to go to church with, four boys. We obviously were probably pushing the envelope on time, and we would all be in the car except for Josh. And where's Josh? What's Josh doing? And Josh can't find his shoes. This was every Sunday. Everybody would get out of the car and we would all go in the house to find Josh's shoes. So there were things like that where it affected the whole family. It was, of course, everybody was very negative to him. Um, and that kind of continued to increase. So I actually went to the physician and said, I'm concerned. There's things like we're very uncoordinated. Um, we looked like we were drowning in the swimming pool, like just didn't have great coordination. We couldn't remember these things, or he could do part of it but not complete the task. And the physician told me that, who I admire greatly, that I had four boys and I just wanted him to be like everybody else. Um, but I kind of pushed, and then he said, if you're adamant about it, I'll send you to a neurologist. So we did. We went to a neurologist and had him evaluated. And I got really almost the exact same answer, that every child is different. You are expecting too much out of him. This is his personality. And so I was the parent who was saying there's something not right. And my husband was the one saying, oh, that's just, he's being a boy. So he was certainly validated by both of those physicians that there was nothing wrong. Meanwhile, life goes on, and Josh started playing football, and my husband was the coach. Well, that didn't go over very well because the ball would be going this direction and Josh would be running this direction. And comments would be made like, how can you do that? Can you not see that the ball is going that way? So it affected their relationship, and it also affected Josh's self-confidence. And he will to this day talk about how he was not a starter on his dad's football team. He wasn't good enough. It was definitely it definitely scarred him emotionally. And he couldn't ride a bike. That was a huge challenge in our family. He was probably 8 years old before we could ride the bike, but I'm talking lots of tears and lots of yelling and screaming. And all you have to do is push the foot. How hard is it? Um, Meanwhile, I'm sitting there just melting because I'm thinking, this is not on purpose. This is not intentional. He wants to do better. He wants to be better. Super
Sure.
smart kid. So it was very heartbreaking. So he ended up with Severn's disease, which is a condition of the foot where the foot kind of grows faster than the tendon. And we went to a chiropractor. And the chiropractor took him back, and he came back and he goes, this kid is so uncoordinated. And I said, what? You're not telling me anything I don't know. I know, like, and he said, well, I have a grandchild who's gone to a neurodevelopmental specialist in Plano, and I want you to call him. And I said, give me their number right now. I'm calling from this waiting. And that is how we found the wonderful, wonderful people at Brain Sprints.
So that's an amazing story. That is so funny. And isn't it interesting how moms just know? I mean, they just know, but oftentimes they don't know what to do about it. So, uh, what was school like for him? Was he struggling in school?
So he always has done really well academically, but his teachers continued to tell me that he had ADHD and that I needed to go get him diagnosed. Because, to go get a pencil across the room would take, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how many times he stopped to interrupt other kids' work. He was in a private school setting, so there was a little bit more tolerance and flexibility. But academically, as far as grades and accomplishments, he was excelling, but his behavior was a point of contention with his teachers.
Mm-hmm. So, am I remembering correctly that Josh was a hand change when we saw him?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
so let me just preface that for a little bit with not everyone that comes to a neurodevelopmentalist is using the wrong hand, but sometimes some of the disorganization that's going on is because they are using the wrong hand. So, you want to expound on that a little bit?
yeah, so we started, he was evaluated when he was actually in fifth grade. So the sad part is it literally took us that long to find support and help.
Mhm.
Um, but when he was younger, I was very conscientious that he changed hands when he grabbed objects. I was like, is he left-handed? Is he right-handed? So we would try to put things where there was no orientation because as an educator myself, I was trying to make sure I didn't influence that. But the late hand, he was late in deciding the hand or for the natural hand to supposedly come to fruition. So he was probably like almost 5 when it was like, okay, he's left-handed. But Jan found out otherwise.
Now, what age was he when we first saw him? When he
So
was
he
in?
was in fifth grade. So
Okay.
probably 11 or 12.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So interestingly, when you have a really smart child, they can cope and compensate up to a point, and then sometimes academically they hit the wall, and sometimes it manifests in other ways, like behavior and that kind of thing. So, can you tell us a little bit about what happened as you were working with them, or what your final results were? Tell us a little bit about your experience.
So after his screening at Brain Sprints, one of the very first things was that immediately he needed to change to his right hand, which was his dominant hand. It was hard. It was really hard for him. I have to go back and say my husband was finally on board with the evaluation when he walked in one day, and Josh had a spiral notebook and it was turned upside down, and he was writing with his left hand from left to right. So he was writing backwards and upside down. So if you had walked up to him, you would be able to read what he was writing. That's the moment where my husband said, okay, something's not right. So moving to this right hand had all kinds of challenges. And the biggest thing was fatigue. Like he complained about, I mean, his fine motor skills in that hand weren't where they needed to be. But I will say, within the first 30 days of changing hands, he actually won first place in a local art contest with the piece of work he had done with his right with his
Oh,
right hand.
oh my goodness.
Um, the therapy was great. Um, we made the decision to have a friend do a lot of the therapy with him. So it was not just Bill and I every single day. So we had some external family support. Again, you want to be mom and dad sometimes, and you don't want to be the one like cracking the whip. So that helped kind of, make sure that we weren't always the one pushing. He he appreciated the therapy because I vividly remember about 2 weeks in, he was standing in the kitchen and I said, "What?" He was just kind of staring, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he was like, almost, "Don't interrupt me," right? And he took off down the stairs and he came back and he goes, "Mom, I remembered where my shoes were." And it literally was the shoes again. And I think right then in that moment, it was like, this is working. And he was old enough to understand what was happening. And it was, it was pretty great to be able for him to articulate as he went through the therapy, things that had been challenging or he was struggling with, like he could see the progress. So that helped keep him motivated for sure. Um, I mean, it's not easy, right? No little boy wants to spend that much time in therapy every week, right? But we tried to make it fun. Um, Trying to mix it up so that it wasn't monotonous and routine every day, like starting at a different place in the plan and um, maybe changing the materials a little bit so it wasn't we're not looking at the same cards but just trying to keep him engaged so that he knew there was an end result and that you could see the end of the rainbow. But yeah, it was such a blessing.
So you had mentioned earlier about the teachers thinking he was had a lot of ADD symptoms. Now, one thing that we do is not label kids, but look at the symptoms and where are these symptoms coming from? Because the brain controls everything we do. So if we impact the brain in certain areas, then the pathways change and then the function changes, the ability to do things. So did his teachers notice anything after you've been working for a while?
They did. And they felt very guilty because I was able to communicate like this is what's happening. And they were very supportive. Matter of fact, there were some items on his therapy plan that they were able to implement in the classroom and were very willing to take on some of that support and help. But they did see like he was able to concentrate for longer periods of time. Some of these distractions weren't happening like they were previously. And despite the fact that he was already academically performing so well, we actually all saw gains in his academic performance.
That's terrific. That's terrific. So did family dynamics change as well?
Oh, yes. And again, lots of guilt as a parent, right? Um, but yes, I think everybody was on board. Everybody supported him and it was gave you a different perspective and a different lens of what had been happening. And it definitely had changed all of our appreciations for his little personality and the
So,
struggles, like understanding his struggle. No,
mhm. So I think that's one thing that really I've enjoyed in this work all along is helping parents to see things from a different perspective. And oftentimes, you can't do anything about what you don't know, but oftentimes the behavioral things that you think are really just, disrespect or not applying himself or all those kind of things, they are really uh, from inefficiencies that are going on in the brain. And once you understand that, oftentimes I tell the children that their brain is just tricking them right now, and that's what we're going to work on is that tricky brain. Helps them to not feel as bad about themselves as well, because you know most of the time they have good hearts. They want to make it happen. And I know that was Josh was, I remember him distinctly, precious little spirit there.
Yes.
Anything, what would you want to tell moms that might be listening to something like this? What would you have as far as encouragement for them?
I think it's you are the biggest advocate for your child. Don't get caught up in the labels and people pushing you to get a quote unquote diagnosis. Like it's just a band-aid for what the root of the real problem is. And that's why I love this program is it really addresses what the real issue is. All these other people are just trying to address the symptom. And you can truly empower your child to use their entire brain and to maximize their gift, and it can be fixed. It takes time and it takes patience, but it's worth every minute. My child wrote a senior paper on the impact of this experience, and I really knew it was significant to him and I knew it was life-changing to him. But when he wrote his senior paper and came home and gave it to me, I cried. Like I couldn't given him a different gift in life. Like this was life changing. He ended up being on a state championship football team and a starter. He was the captain. He is in graduate school getting an MBA. He wouldn't be that. He wouldn't have had that ability and that function if we hadn't gone through this therapy.
Well, that certainly is amazing. I had forgotten you told me about the paper that he wrote, and isn't it interesting that all those years later he's thinking about how that impacted his life, and so that just is, I don't know, that's breathtaking for me actually, for him to have that kind of experience. And it is oftentimes what I hear is life-changing experience. And that's what we do here. We equip parents to have the way to change those pathways in the brain. We don't actually call it therapy, but it seems kind of therapeutic for because of what we know. But it's just activities that anyone can do, whether you're homeschooling, whether your child's in school. It's just activities that you can do to enhance those brain pathways that just can make all the difference in your child's life. So, Angela, I just thank you so much. Is there anything else you think of that we haven't talked about that you might want to put out there?
But I am a phone call away if anybody wants additional information or has questions about what we went through as a family and with my personal child, I would be an advocate for you.
Oh, that's such a great offer. It's as parents, because I started this from with a need that I had in my life for help for my child. And we just want that for other people too, because we know what it felt like when we didn't have the help we needed. So thank you for that. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Jan. I'm so grateful.